Have you ever wondered why some women seem to hold an almost magnetic power over men? A force that evokes both desire and fear, attraction and resistance. She walks into a room and something changes in the air. Her presence is not loud, not flamboyant, yet it commands attention in ways words never could. Men feel drawn to her, yet uneasy. They crave her light but tremble before her depth. She is not the girl next door. She is not the damsel waiting to be chosen. She is the Shadow Queen, the embodiment of everything the feminine becomes once she stops begging to be loved and begins remembering that she already is. Carl Jung would have said that this woman is the living mirror of a man's unconscious. She carries within her the anima, the soul image that he has spent his life searching for, often without realizing it. But to look into her eyes is to confront everything within himself he has spent years avoiding. His insecurities, his suppressed tenderness, his hunger for control. The parts of him that tremble before the chaos of genuine intimacy. The Shadow Queen doesn't soften herself to make him comfortable. She doesn't dilute her truth to fit inside his ego, and that is precisely why he both desires her and fears her. Because she holds the power to awaken the part of him that has long been asleep. Most men do not truly fear rejection from a woman, they fear recognition. The recognition that beneath their masks of strength lies a boy who still aches to be seen, to be forgiven, to be held without judgment. When he meets a woman who sees through him, who can pierce his armor with her stillness and mirror his soul without uttering a word, he feels both naked and alive. That is the paradox of the Shadow Queen. She doesn't lure him with seduction. She reveals him to himself, and revelation is terrifying to the unready mind. This woman's power is not born from manipulation. It comes from self-possession. She has traveled through the dark corridors of her own psyche, faced her wounds, buried her illusions, and emerged sovereign. Her strength is not loud, it is rooted. Her energy does not chase. It attracts by the sheer gravity of wholeness. While others play the game of masks, she moves in authenticity, and authenticity is the rarest aphrodisiac of all. Because in a world addicted to pretense, truth feels like danger. To understand her is to understand the process of individuation, the soul's journey toward unity. Jung wrote that no human being becomes whole by staying in the light. One must integrate the shadow. The Shadow Queen has done precisely that. She has met her jealousy, her rage, her vulnerability, her hunger, and instead of condemning them, she has sat with them, learned from them, and folded them into her being. This is why her presence feels ancient. It carries the scent of wisdom born from fire, the kind of energy that cannot be imitated because it has been earned. You can recognize her by the silence she keeps. It is not the silence of suppression, but of power under control. She doesn't argue to prove her worth. Her boundaries speak louder than any words. She doesn't seek to dominate men, but neither will she kneel to them. Her allure lies not in submission, but in the delicate balance between surrender and sovereignty. To love her requires courage, the courage to stand before her without trying to own her reflection. And very few men are ready for that kind of love because it demands they dismantle their own illusions first. In a world that rewards women for compliance, her defiance is sacred. She will not apologize for wanting depth, nor will she settle for half-hearted affection. She knows that to be chosen by someone who cannot meet her emotionally is not love. It is self-abandonment. So she chooses herself, even when it means walking alone. That solitude does not weaken her. It polishes her aura until it becomes unmistakable. She doesn't chase attention. She channels energy. Every wound she has ever endured has been transmuted into quiet confidence, a currency that no one can counterfeit. But let's be clear, this woman was not born a queen. She became one through pain. Her throne was carved from heartbreak. Her crown forged from tears she no longer hides. Every betrayal taught her discernment. Every silence taught her self-respect. Every time she was misunderstood, she learned to understand herself more deeply. That is the alchemy of the feminine journey, transforming rejection into radiance, loss into leadership. The Shadow Queen does not seek revenge. Her victory is the peace that comes from no longer needing approval. Men sense this power even if they cannot name it. Some are drawn closer, hoping to taste her mystery. Others retreat, threatened by what they cannot control. Both reactions are correct, for she represents what every man must eventually confront: the feminine within himself. Feeling, intuition, surrender. Until he reconciles with that inner energy, he will continue to oscillate between idolizing and resenting her, and she will remain the mirror, holding his soul up to his own reflection. The world tells women to be small, polite, predictable. The Shadow Queen remembers that the moon never apologizes for its phases. Her emotions do not make her weak, they make her real. Her desire is not sin, it is sacred fuel. Her boundaries are not cold, they are the architecture of her self-love. She is what the patriarchal psyche has always feared: a woman who no longer seeks permission to exist in her fullness. And yet, this same fullness is what every man secretly longs for, because deep down, he doesn't crave a servant or a savior. He craves a mirror, a muse, a mystery that awakens the dormant king within him. The one who can meet her not as a master, but as an equal. To stand before the Shadow Queen is to encounter the paradox of true feminine energy. It seduces not through promise but through presence, not through sweetness but through depth. Her allure is magnetic because it is rooted in truth. She does not pretend to be soft when she feels fire, nor does she perform power when she feels tenderness. She moves with the rhythm of her own authenticity, and that rhythm unsettles those who have only ever known performance. In her presence, the illusions of control begin to dissolve. The man who built his identity on dominance, on certainty, finds himself suddenly unsure. Because her eyes do not flatter, they reveal. Men are not conditioned to handle such revelation. The modern man is often trained to conquer, not to connect. He chases goals, victories, and women with the same mechanical persistence, mistaking acquisition for intimacy. But when he meets the Shadow Queen, all of that fails. He cannot win her. He cannot possess her. She cannot be manipulated by flattery, nor moved by fear. The usual scripts crumble in her silence, and in that collapse, he faces himself, the hollowness behind his pursuits, the emotional orphan within his success. This confrontation is not romantic, it is existential, for she forces him to ask, "Who am I when I can no longer control love?" This is why many men both crave and resist her. The weak will call her too much. They will accuse her of arrogance when she is merely self-aware, of coldness when she is protecting her peace. Yet beneath their judgment lies fascination, because even as they retreat, they can't forget her. Her image lingers, not as a fantasy but as a haunting, a reminder of the depth they once glimpsed but could not hold. She becomes the myth every shallow relationship will be compared against, not because she was flawless, but because she was real. And for women, for those watching, listening, yearning to understand, the Shadow Queen represents more than a romantic archetype. She is the embodiment of individuation itself. She is what emerges when a woman no longer measures her worth by how much she is needed. The process is not gentle. It begins with disillusionment, the slow, painful awakening that no one is coming to save her. The fairy tales collapse. The validation fades. And in the silence that follows, she begins the descent into her own underworld. There, she meets the parts of herself she once feared: the envy, the loneliness, the anger, the hunger for power. She does not banish them. She listens, because each emotion, once understood, becomes a servant of her wisdom. Jung called this process shadow, integration, the sacred act of making peace with what the conscious mind rejects. Most people avoid it, preferring distraction over self-confrontation, but she walks into it willingly, because she understands that power without self-awareness is corruption, and love without boundaries is chaos. The woman who becomes the Shadow Queen learns that softness without strength invites exploitation, and strength without softness breeds isolation. So she chooses both. She becomes paradox incarnate, gentle and fierce, giving yet guarded, loving yet unattached. It is no coincidence that men feel magnetized by her. The anima, the feminine image in the male unconscious, longs for integration as much as the woman longs for recognition. She awakens that buried energy in him, calling him toward wholeness. But if he is not ready to evolve, he will misinterpret the call as threat. He will label her independence as rebellion, her silence as rejection, her boundaries as punishment. Because when a man has not yet made peace with his own inner feminine, his emotions, his empathy, his surrender, he sees in her what he fears in himself. Yet, when he is ready, something miraculous happens. Instead of shrinking before her power, he begins to rise to meet it. He stops seeking to possess her and starts seeking to understand her. He learns that her strength is not an attack on his masculinity, but an invitation to expand it. He begins to realize that leadership and vulnerability are not opposites. They are twins. This is the alchemy she offers him. To love her is to evolve, and only the man who has faced his own shadow can truly stand beside her without trembling. Still, she does not wait for him. Her journey is not defined by whether anyone joins her. The Shadow Queen's path is solitary by nature, not because she rejects love, but because she refuses to lose herself in its pursuit. She understands that the truest form of partnership can only emerge between two sovereign beings, not two halves seeking completion, but two wholes choosing communion. Until then, she continues her ascent, her crown not made of gold but of self-respect. Her throne is her peace, and her kingdom is her energy. You might recognize traces of her in yourself. The moments you felt misunderstood because your strength intimidated others. The times you were told to tone it down, to be more agreeable, when what they really meant was be less powerful. Every woman carries the potential of the Shadow Queen within her, but most hide it beneath layers of guilt, shame, and fear of abandonment. Society teaches that to be loved, you must be pleasing. She has unlearned that lie. Her love no longer requires self-betrayal. Her approval no longer hinges on applause, and because of that, her energy becomes rare, and rarity commands reverence. To become her is not about dominance or control. It's about remembrance. Remembering that the feminine was never meant to be small, that intuition was never madness, that desire was never sin, and that softness and strength were always meant to coexist. The Shadow Queen does not emerge to overthrow men. She emerges to restore balance within herself first and then within the collective. The world has long misunderstood the woman who stands in her full power. History has called her dangerous, sinful, manipulative, names given by those who feared what they could not dominate. The priest called her the temptress. The philosopher called her irrational. The lover called her too much. But beneath every accusation lies a confession that her mere existence challenges the order built on fear. Because when a woman no longer needs to be controlled, the fragile egos that relied on her submission begin to tremble. The Shadow Queen embodies the energy of rebellion, but hers is not a rebellion of destruction. It is a rebellion of remembrance. She does not fight men. She frees herself from the narratives that made her smaller. The world taught her that power belongs to those who raise their voice. She learned that real power is silent, deliberate, grounded. It is not expressed through domination, but through mastery. The mastery of self. The one who commands her emotions, who owns her reactions, who no longer lets approval dictate her direction, becomes untouchable. And this untouchability is what makes her magnetic. Men who are still enslaved by their own egos cannot love her properly, for her freedom exposes their chains. Her independence feels like rejection, her mystery like mockery. They project onto her the shadows they refuse to see, calling her cold because she doesn't chase, labeling her detached because she doesn't beg. Yet she is not cold. She feels everything deeply, but she has learned that not every emotion deserves expression, and not every connection deserves access. Her boundaries are not walls, they are gates, and few hold the key. The irony is that the same men who fear her are drawn to her, precisely because she embodies what they lack: self-trust. She walks through life as though she knows something they don't, because she does. She has made peace with solitude. She does not fear being alone, because she has met herself in silence and found company there. And that kind of self-intimacy cannot be faked. It radiates from her posture, her gaze, her voice. It's the kind of presence that makes noise irrelevant. She does not need to prove herself. She simply is. Jung might have said she. It is the living expression of the self, the unified soul that has integrated light and dark, masculine and feminine. Her existence represents psychological wholeness, the very state that modern men and women both seek unconsciously through relationships. This is why she disturbs the collective psyche. She mirrors what most people have not yet become. When you stand in front of someone who has integrated their contradictions, you feel your own fragmentation. That sensation, the mix of admiration and discomfort, is what makes her unforgettable. But she, too, once lived in fragmentation. Before she became the Shadow Queen, she was the pleaser, the healer, the girl who waited. She loved too quickly, trusted too blindly, gave too much. She mistook self-sacrifice for love, mistook endurance for devotion. Each heartbreak stripped another illusion away until she realized that the love she sought externally could never replace the absence she carried within. That awakening broke her open, and that opening became her rebirth. It is not that she stopped loving. She began loving from a higher altitude. Where once she begged to be chosen, now she chooses with discernment. Where once she feared loss, now she honors endings as sacred redirections. This evolution is not arrogance, it is consciousness. To meet her now is to meet someone who no longer negotiates her worth. She doesn't play emotional tug-of-war to feel valued. Her self-esteem is self-generated. She can give love freely because she no longer gives it to prove her goodness. She can receive admiration without letting it define her. And when she walks away, she does so not to punish, but to protect her energy. She knows that peace is expensive, and she's no longer willing to pay for chaos. The Shadow Queen teaches a silent gospel, that love is not the merging of two incomplete beings, but the meeting of two souls who have faced themselves. She is the initiator of that truth. Every man who crosses her path faces a test, to evolve or to retreat. To love her is to confront the mother wound, the need for control, the fear of vulnerability. It is to realize that love cannot be owned, that devotion cannot be demanded, that intimacy requires equality of spirit. Only a man who has met his own darkness can meet her light without flinching. Yet she carries no bitterness toward those who failed the test. She understands that everyone evolves at their own pace. The unready man is not her enemy. He is a mirror of her past self. Before she learned discernment, her compassion remains, but her access no longer does. She gives closure not through words, but through absence. She leaves the door open for growth, not for return. For once a woman becomes the shadow queen, she no longer moves backward. Her life unfolds in ascension. And if you are listening, if some part of you feels the ache of recognition, it may be because you are on that path yourself. The path where innocence meets wisdom, where longing transforms into purpose. You might still feel the pull to shrink, to explain, to earn. But beneath that urge lies the quiet truth waiting to rise. You were never meant to be chosen by the world. You were meant to remember your crown. The moment you stop chasing love and start embodying it, the dynamic changes. The man who once fled your fire will either evolve to withstand it or burn trying. Either way, you will not dim. Because the Shadow Queen does not compete. She creates. She does not conform. She transforms. And her kingdom is not external. It is the sanctum of her own peace. There is something almost mythic about the woman who has mastered her inner world. Her silence feels ancient. Her calm almost prophetic. As though she carries the memory of every woman who was once silenced, betrayed, or diminished. The Shadow Queen is the resurrection of that collective memory. She rises not in vengeance, but in restoration. Each boundary she sets is an act of healing the generations before her who were taught that love means endurance. Each no she speaks with quiet certainty is a liberation spell for every voice that once trembled to say it. Men feel this energy before they understand it. It pulls on something primal. Not the animalistic lust that desires to possess, but the spiritual instinct that desires to awaken. Because in her gaze there is something he recognizes but cannot name. The mother, the lover, the muse, the mirror. She embodies the totality of the feminine, nurturing and destructive, gentle and ruthless, serene yet storm. Her energy whispers of both birth and annihilation, because to love her is to be reborn, and rebirth requires the death of the false self. The uninitiated man will resist this death. He will try to shrink her vastness into a box his ego can hold. He will interpret her self-possession as rejection, her self-sufficiency as a wound. Yet, in truth, she wounds nothing but illusion. Every man who meets her walks away transformed, whether he admits it or not. For she teaches without words that love cannot save anyone who refuses to save themselves. Her love is not a drug, it is a mirror, and what that mirror reflects will either break you open or break you down. But the Shadow Queen does not exist to be worshipped. Her power is not ornamental, it is alchemical. Her presence provokes evolution because she herself has evolved through fire. She does not need followers, she needs equals. Men who can meet her not with dominance but with depth, not with promises but with presence. Because she knows that intimacy is not found in possession, but in surrender. The kind that says, I see you as you are, and I do not need to control it. That is the only love that can reach her now. To the world, she may seem untouchable, but that is because most have only seen women who bleed for love, not those who build from it. She doesn't flaunt her independence to intimidate. She carries it like sacred armor. She can nurture, without losing herself, care without collapsing, give without depleting. This is what true maturity looks like. Not indifference, but discernment. She has learned that compassion without boundaries becomes self-destruction, and patience without reciprocity becomes self-betrayal. In her stillness, there is an unspoken command. Meet me here, in truth or not at all. And those words are not arrogance, they are a compass. Because love that does not elevate you will eventually erase you. She has no interest in half measures or almost connections. She has learned the cost of trying to teach others how to value her. She will no longer audition for love. The stage has burned down, and she has walked off into the temple of her own heart, where peace is not a prize but a birthright. The psychology behind her power is simple yet profound. Jung would say she has achieved the union of opposites. The anima and animus within her no longer wage war. She has embraced her inner masculine. The structure, the focus, the discernment, without losing her feminine essence. The empathy, the intuition, the creativity. This balance radiates as sovereignty. It is not gendered, it is spiritual. And it terrifies those who still rely on polarity to feel significant. Because in her wholeness, she no longer plays roles. Not the caretaker, not the victim, not the saint. She is simply herself, vast and unapologetic. You may feel the longing to become her, and you can. But understand this. Becoming the Shadow Queen is not an aesthetic. It's an initiation. It requires solitude, disillusionment, and the courage to face your own reflection without flinching. You will have to sit in nights of emptiness so deep that you forget your name. You will have to forgive yourself for every time you betrayed your intuition just to be loved. You will have to release the fantasy of being understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding you. And you will have to stop rescuing those who drown willingly. Only then will your energy begin to change. When it does, the world will respond differently. The people who once drained you will quietly drift away. The ones who feared your power will accuse you of cruelty. But do not shrink. Every loss will make sense later. You are shedding roles, not relationships. Illusions, not love. The emptiness that follows will not be punishment. It will be purification. In that sacred space, something magnificent happens. You stop waiting for validation and start vibrating with peace. You become magnetic without trying, radiant without effort. Because the energy of a woman who no longer needs to prove her worth is irresistible. The Shadow Queen's journey is not about superiority. It's about serenity. She does not need to be chosen because she has already chosen herself. And in that choice lies her divine paradox. The moment she stops seeking love, love begins to seek her. Not the shallow imitation of love that comes from need, but the real kind. The kind that recognizes the soul. Because when a woman stands in her full energy, she does not attract attention. She attracts alignment. She no longer says, "Please love me." She says with her presence alone, "I am love." There comes a point in her journey when silence becomes her language. When she no longer argues, no longer explains, no longer seeks to prove the purity of her heart to those committed to misunderstanding it. The Shadow Queen reaches that point and understands something most never will. That peace is not found in external harmony, but in inner alignment. She has walked through every storm her emotions could summon, and learned that calm is not the absence of chaos, it is the mastery of it. Her detachment confuses those who mistake it for apathy, but she feels everything, only now she chooses what deserves her energy. She no longer reacts to every provocation, because she has discovered the quiet ecstasy of non-reaction. That stillness is not indifference, it is transcendence. It is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." She has applied this stoic wisdom to her feminine soul. The woman who once cried to be seen has now become her own witness. And that, in itself, is liberation. When she looks in the mirror now, she doesn't see the fragments of who she used to be. She sees integration. She remembers every version of herself, the one who pleaded, the one who endured, the one who broke. They all live within her, not as shame, but as scripture. Her scars have become constellations guiding her forward. Her pain, once heavy, now carries light. Every wound became an initiation, every ending an awakening. And this realization frees her from resentment toward men, toward society, toward the past. Because she now understands, nothing was taken from her that wasn't meant to redirect her toward her own power. Men who encounter her now sense something both comforting and intimidating. a woman who cannot be swayed by flattery or broken by absence. Her energy says, "I love you, but I don't need you to exist." And that independence terrifies those who built their worth upon being needed. Yet, for the evolved man, it is an invitation to rise. For when he meets her strength without defensiveness, her softness without manipulation, something within him expands. Her sovereignty does not emasculate, it initiates. It calls forth his higher nature. The king within the man, the consciousness within the instinct. But she will not wait for him to awaken. Her life no longer revolves around potential, only reciprocity. She no longer invests in promise, she invests in presence. She has learned that love, when stripped of illusions, is not a possession but a practice, one of mutual awareness, respect, and peace. The men who cannot meet her there will fade, not as villains but as teachers who completed their purpose. Her gratitude extends even to them, for she knows that without the lessons of misalignment, she would never have become sovereign. There is something divine about the quiet confidence of a woman who has mastered her emotions. She walks differently, speaks differently, loves differently. She is no longer trying to convince the world of her worth. Her existence does that for her. She wears her solitude not as loneliness, but as luxury. Her standards are not walls, they are filters for peace. She trusts timing, she trusts endings, and she trusts herself. Her faith is no longer in outcomes but in alignment. That is what true power feels like. Effortless authority born from inner harmony. In Jungian terms, she has reached individuation, the state of psychic wholeness. The feminine and masculine energies within her no longer compete, they collaborate. She is intuitive yet rational, soft yet disciplined, emotional yet grounded. She has transcended polarity, and in doing so, she embodies the archetype of the queen, not the one who rules over others, but the one who reigns over herself. She has outgrown validation and stepped into vibration. Her energy now communicates what words never could. I am whole. And when you observe her from afar, you may think she has become untouchable. But the truth is, she has simply remembered who she was before the world told her to forget. The little girl who once dreamed of being chosen has now chosen herself. The woman who once doubted her beauty has learned that radiance begins in the soul. The lover who once waited for permission to shine now illuminates everything she touches. She is not a fantasy. She is the feminine evolved. So when men whisper about her, when they say she's too independent, too mysterious, too much, she smiles. Because she knows those words translate to one thing: too free. And freedom, she has learned, is the highest form of beauty. She doesn't need to prove her softness or defend her strength. She knows that both can coexist. That true feminine power is not the absence of vulnerability, but the mastery of it. She no longer needs to control how others perceive her, because perception cannot touch truth. And this is where her story ends. Not in triumph over others, but in reunion with herself. She no longer seeks validation, nor revenge, nor recognition. Her worth is no longer up for negotiation. Her energy is her empire, her peace is her crown, and her love, now purified of need, has become her throne. Because the woman, who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.